No one saw Evelyn. That was how life had always been. She was the Omega people walked past. The girl tasks were dumped on, the one with no voice and no place. But tonight was worse than usual. Tonight was the royal lunar selection, and she was forced to attend. Her stepsisters had already made sure she would arrive defeated. Minutes before leaving, they tore apart the only dress she owned and left her trembling in the snow. She walked anyway, clutching what was left of the fabric, the cold slicing her skin as if it wanted to erase her completely. The courtyard where the selection was held glowed with golden light, filled with nobles in silk and wolves with perfect posture. Conversations stopped the moment Evelyn stepped in. She didn't need to hear the whispers to know what they were thinking. She shouldn't be here. She should have stayed invisible. A sound echoed through the still air, the rest of her dress tearing apart. Gasps followed. Laughter curled around her like smoke. She froze, every stare burning her at once. She wasn't walking into the selection. She was walking into her humiliation. Her heartbeat was the only sound she could still hear. Until everything went silent. A shadow stretched across the snow. Heavy footsteps followed, but no guards moved to stop them. The crowd slowly lowered their heads as the Alpha King walked past everyone, and stopped directly in front of Evelyn. No one understood what was happening. He was known as the Untouchable King, cold, distant, feared for his icy heart. He never approached anyone. He never touched anyone, but he didn't speak a single word. He simply removed his royal cloak, and wrapped it around Evelyn's shoulders. The courtyard erupted in murmurs. Shock, confusion, horror. A king touching an Omega. That had never happened, not in any written history. Evelyn's shaking hand brushed the fabric. Warmth spread through her body. For the first time that night, she stopped shivering. But warmth wasn't safety. It felt like a spotlight. Like a silent claim. When she lifted her eyes, just once, she found him already watching her. His gaze was unreadable. Not angry, not pitying, but something entirely different. It was recognition. The kind that could change destinies. The kind that no Omega should ever receive. The cold king didn't save her. He claimed her, and she had no idea why. A cloak doesn't offer protection in the palace. It acts as an invitation. And tomorrow, it leads her inside the royal walls. Evelyn woke before sunrise, unsure if the cloak around her was a memory or a dream, until the soft weight of it reminded her that everything had changed. She expected guards to arrive. She expected punishment. Instead, something far worse came. An invitation. The royal crest stamped in silver. Her name written clearly beside it, Evelyn Dawn. Not scratched out. Not hidden. Marked. She was to be escorted to the palace immediately. As the gates opened, she realized something unsettling. The palace didn't feel like a building. It felt like a creature. A silent one, with eyes in every corner. Its corridors breathed with cold air and ancient secrets, as if the walls themselves remembered every betrayal that occurred inside them. Nobles watched her as she walked through the entrance hall, not with mild curiosity, but with calculation. Some stared at the cloak with disgust, others with fear. It didn't feel like a gift anymore. It felt like chains made of silk. Whispers followed her like shadows. Some believed the Alpha King pitied her. Others believed he had already chosen a Luna. Both ideas were dangerous. Cassian didn't speak to her. He didn't even look at her. But his guards followed every step she took. Hours passed. She remained silent, trying to understand why she was there. Every corner of the palace held symbols she couldn't decipher. Silver runes etched into the floors, mirrors placed in precise angles, portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her. When she finally asked a maid about the cloak, the woman flinched before answering. A royal cloak, she said quietly, means you owe the king something, and he always collects what he's owed. Evelyn said nothing, but her heart raced. By nightfall, she stood before a grand notice board, where the names of the lunar candidates were displayed. Most were noble-born and trained for this their whole lives. Every girl on the list had status, wealth, or influence. Except one, Evelyn Dawn, Omega-born. Unranked. No one added her to the list. The name wasn't simply written. It was marked with the royal seal. Someone wanted her in the selection. But someone else wanted her gone before it even began. The palace never waits to attack. It just waits for the first mistake. And Evelyn's first enemy is already standing behind her. Evelyn stood frozen before the lunar selection list, her name still burning in her mind. She sensed movement behind her, but it wasn't a guard. It was slow, deliberate, elegant. When she turned, she saw Lady Seraphine. Her beauty was flawless, like something sculpted, not born. She had the kind of smile that made people lower their eyes. The kind that didn't belong to a friend. An Omega, Seraphine said softly, as if tasting the word. And yet your name stands beside ours. How many rules did you break to stand in this hallway? There were no guards rushing forward. No one to defend her. The corridor was silent, except for the echo of Seraphine's heels, tapping once every few seconds like a countdown. Evelyn opened her mouth, but no words came. She didn't need to speak. Someone else already had. Heavy footsteps entered the corridor. Noble heads bowed instantly. The air shifted, almost painfully, when the Alpha King appeared. Cassian didn't look at Seraphine. He didn't even look at Evelyn. His voice was calm, short, designed to silence. She broke none. Seraphine's confidence flickered, just once, and everyone saw it. The corridor bowed deeper. The noble girls fell silent. Cassian walked past them all, as if his presence was a command, not an arrival. But before disappearing around the corner, his silver gaze found Evelyn, briefly. Enough to say everything without a single word. He was watching her, and he expected her to survive this. As the nobles dispersed, Seraphine lingered. Her voice was softer than before, but sharper. Power protects, she whispered. But it also isolates. If the king wants you alive, then he wants something more valuable than your safety. Evelyn said nothing, but inside, a realization took root. A cloak did not make her safe. A royal gaze did not make her special. They made her visible, and visibility, in the palace, was dangerous. That night, Evelyn found a message outside her door, sealed with black wax. It contained only 5 words. You should have stayed invisible. Night fell over the palace like a warning. Evelyn lay awake in the unfamiliar bed, surrounded by silence that felt too perfect, as if the palace knew she was listening. Just before midnight, she heard footsteps. Not heavy like guards, not elegant like nobles, soft ones, measured, precise. A single envelope slid under her door. Black wax, no sender. 5 words written in dark ink. You should have stayed invisible. The message didn't threaten her. It promised something worse, intention. The next morning, Evelyn was summoned to the training hall for the lunar selection preparations. The other candidates were already there, stretching, practicing their posture, rehearsing how to smile beneath the crown. Some ignored her, most watched her, but one studied her, Lady Seraphine. The instructors explained the first rule of the lunar selection. A lunar doesn't endure the palace. She survives it. Training began. It wasn't strength that mattered. It was strategy. Who spoke to whom? Who stayed silent when the queen's advisers passed by? Who bowed low enough to be respectful, but not desperate? Evelyn noticed something else. Every candidate wore a custom-tailored dress. She still wore the cloak. And people kept a distance from her, not out of respect, out of suspicion. That afternoon, Evelyn slipped into a quieter hallway to escape the stairs. There were fewer candles there. More shadows. A cold draft seeped through the thin windows. As she walked, she saw a grand mirror on the wall, tall and elegant, but placed at a strange angle. She leaned closer. The mirror's frame was marked with runes, silver runes, just like the ones etched into the palace floors. She reached out and gently brushed her fingers against the carving. A hollow sound echoed behind the glass. It wasn't a simple mirror. It was a passage. Before she could say a word, movement flickered inside. Light, small and flickering like fire. A figure on the other side, burning a stack of papers. When the flames died, only ash remained. But Evelyn saw the last thing that burned. Her name. She stepped back, but it was too late. The palace had heard her. The corridors breathed colder, and Evelyn understood something new. The palace wasn't simply a place where Luna was chosen. It was a test, a hunt, a puzzle made of secrets. Someone wanted her gone, but someone else had brought her here. In the royal archives, Omegas aren't supposed to exist. But Evelyn finds her own bloodline sealed in red ink. And the footsteps behind her don't belong to the king. The morning began with silence that felt planned. The palace was too calm, the corridors too still, as if waiting for someone to make the first mistake. Evelyn walked with the cloak wrapped tightly around her, searching for a place where eyes couldn't find her. She found the royal archives instead. The room wasn't grand, but it felt sacred. Dust floated in the air like old memories. Scrolls lined the walls, names of ancestors, victories of kings, bloodlines of nobles. But Evelyn knew something immediately. There was no section for Omegas. As if history had erased them completely. She scanned row after row, until a drawer caught her attention. Locked, unlabeled, not listed in any category. A drawer that didn't belong anywhere. She wasn't supposed to touch it. But something inside her whispered that it belonged to her. She pulled. Nothing moved. So she slowly lowered her hand, and pressed the edge of the royal cloak against the lock. A click. The drawer opened. Inside were exactly 3 files, each sealed in red wax, meaning they were forbidden to view without direct permission from the crown. One name made her heart stop. Evelyn Dawn. Classified Omega entry. Status. Marked. Access. Royal only. Her name wasn't added recently. It had been there for years. Before she could look deeper, footsteps echoed in the hallway, slow at first, then faster. Closer. She shut the drawer and turned, expecting a guard. It wasn't a guard. It was a noble girl she'd never seen before. Pale eyes, sharp voice, carrying silence like a blade. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Evelyn stood her ground. "I was just leaving." The girl wasn't convinced. Her eyes narrowed. "You're wearing a royal cloak. You're not leaving. You're being tested." Evelyn said nothing. But inside, everything was changing. Someone had put her name in those files years ago. Before the lunar selection. Before tonight. Before she ever met the king. She wasn't brought here by accident. The noble girl leaned closer and whispered. "The king may have wrapped a cloak around your shoulders. But this palace wrapped a noose around your neck long before that." Evelyn's heartbeat thundered. She finally realized. The palace didn't start hunting her today. It had been waiting for her arrival. That night, the king calls for Evelyn. Not to question her, but to ask something he's never asked anyone. "Do you remember your first shift?" And her answer could change everything. Evelyn never expected a personal summons from the king. Not at night, and not alone. Yet a guard arrived at her door without explanation and guided her to the silent wing of the palace. No nobles were there. No selection candidates. Only torches burning dimly, as if trying not to be loud. The guards opened a tall door and left her. Inside stood Cassian. He wasn't seated on the throne. He wasn't surrounded by advisors or guards. He stood by the window, looking out across the kingdom, where the moonlight fell in silver fragments on the land. For a long moment, he didn't speak. When he finally did, the question was wrong. Too strange. Too deliberate. "Do you remember your first shift?" Evelyn froze. That was not a question Omegas were asked. Some weren't even allowed to speak of their shifts, especially when they shifted late, or differently. Her memories flickered like broken fire. Pain. Cold. Silence. A long night where no one came when she screamed. She didn't answer. Cassian turned fully to face her. His gaze held no visible emotion, but something in it was searching. Not judging. Not calculating. Searching. "In your file," he said quietly, "there is no record of it." The archives. Her name in red wax. Years-old entries. What was missing? What was hidden? Evelyn found her voice again. I was told my shift was ordinary. Unremarkable. Cassian stepped closer, not threateningly, almost cautiously. Like someone approaching a memory they weren't sure was real. That, he said softly, is exactly the kind of thing this palace writes, when the truth is dangerous. For the first time, Evelyn saw something in his eyes. Not warmth, not kindness, but familiarity, as if he knew what it meant to be erased, rewritten, or renamed. The room no longer felt like a chamber. It felt like a confession. Before she could respond, the torches flickered. The guards outside stirred. A murmur went through the hallways. Someone was approaching. Someone the king didn't expect. Cassian's expression hardened instantly. His voice lowered. There are eyes here that should never see you, he said, pulling the royal seal from his cloak. If they do, they will know that you were never invisible. He pressed the seal into her hand. Not to me. The doors opened. Everything changed. A new visitor has arrived. One with authority to end her claim as a candidate, or reveal why she was chosen before she was even born. The doors opened with a controlled force, neither rushed nor gentle, but purposeful. A man entered wearing deep navy robes marked with the silver crest of the Royal Council. His hair was dark, his gaze sharp, and when he stepped forward, even the guards looked uneasy. His name echoed through the corridor like a warning. High Chancellor Rowan, the king's most trusted advisor, and the council's watchful eye. He bowed to the king, but not too low. Respectful, but never submissive. Your Majesty, he said smoothly, forgive the intrusion. There are matters that require clarity. His gaze shifted to Evelyn, and questions that need answers. Evelyn felt it instantly. He did not come to challenge her. He came to evaluate her. Cassian's voice was calm. This is not a council matter. Rowan smiled without warmth. An Omega with a king's cloak always becomes a council matter. He studied Evelyn for a long moment. Quietly, efficiently, the way someone examined evidence. Then he spoke directly to her. Tell me, Miss Dawn, how old were you when you first shifted? Her pulse quickened. The same question. Why? What was in that moment they were both trying to find? Evelyn answered carefully. 15. Rowan tilted his head. And did anyone witness it? Her silence was answer enough. Rowan didn't nod. He didn't frown. He simply understood, which frightened her more than any threat could have. Then he turned toward the king. Her file is incomplete. Someone intentionally removed details. Cassian's expression darkened, not with fear, but with irritation. It was incomplete before she arrived. Rowan's eyes sharpened. Or someone didn't want it complete until she arrived. That single sentence changed the air in the room. Evelyn realized something chilling. There were only two possibilities now. Someone in power was trying to erase her. Or someone in power was trying to protect her. The king's gaze met Rowan's. Silent, tense. Then Rowan said quietly, there is a rule, Your Majesty. If a candidate's identity cannot be verified. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The consequence was clear. She could be expelled. Or worse, disqualified before the competition even began. But before Rowan left, he looked at Evelyn one last time. And for the briefest moment, she felt as though he already knew the truth. But was waiting to see if she did. He bowed again. Let us hope, he said calmly, that her past does not choose to visit. Then he left, leaving more questions than answers. Evelyn receives another message. This time not a threat, but a memory, one she shouldn't have forgotten. The air around the pack began to shift. Whispers traveled through corridors and training grounds like cold wind. Something was different about the Alpha King lately, and everyone felt it. Guards exchanged uneasy looks, elders held quiet discussions, and the servants felt the tension building. Something big was coming. The girl who was once invisible was now the center of attention, though she never asked for it. Some stared with curiosity, others with jealousy. She tried to keep her head low and work like before, but her days were no longer simple. Every step was watched, Every word mattered. Meanwhile, the Alpha King was battling with emotions he never knew he had. He stood by his window late at night, looking over his kingdom, trying to regain control. He was a ruler trained to be strong, never shaken, never confused. But this was different. The pull he felt toward her wasn't logical, and that scared him more than any enemy ever could. In the training grounds, warriors whispered her name but never said it loudly. They didn't dare. Some feared she would change the future of the pack. Others believed she already had. A servant being noticed by the king. That had never happened before. Rules were being broken, and in their world, broken rules led to consequences. She tried to avoid attention by hiding in her duties. But no matter where she went, someone seemed to follow. Not to harm her, but to watch. The elders wanted answers. The warriors wanted clarity. And the king, he wanted peace in his own mind. One evening, she walked past the throne room and felt a sudden silence fall over the place. The Alpha King was inside, alone. For a moment, their eyes met through the open door. No words were exchanged, but something powerful passed between them. Not romance, not yet, but fate. Something that couldn't be ignored. She walked away, heart racing, not understanding why everything felt so heavy. As if the world had chosen her for something she didn't want. And above them all, prophecies from the past slowly began to resurface. Scrolls, hidden for years, were being studied once again. History was moving, and her name was quietly entering it. The pack was changing. Destiny was rewriting itself, and the first chapter of her real life was just beginning. The royal archives had always been quiet, but tonight, they felt alive. Every scroll, every book, every shadow seemed to watch Evelyn as she entered. Her footsteps echoed like a warning. This place did not welcome intruders. She had learned the hard way that the palace was more than stone and gold. It had memory, secrets, eyes, and tonight, it was testing her. The air smelled faintly of parchment and dust. A candle flickered, throwing long shadows against the walls. Evelyn's heart thumped in her chest. She wasn't here for study. She was searching for answers. Answers about her family, her bloodline, and why the king had claimed her so suddenly. She opened a drawer that had been left slightly ajar. Inside lay documents stamped with red wax. Her name glared at her from one file, sharp and undeniable. Trembling, she lifted it, only to find a folded piece of parchment tucked inside. The writing was old, nearly faded, but clear enough. The one who walks invisible carries the key. Watch her, or she will unravel what we have buried. Her blood ran cold. Someone had been watching her long before she arrived at the palace. Someone powerful, someone dangerous. A sound behind her made her spin. A figure was moving among the shelves, silent but deliberate. Shadows twisted across the floor as if alive. Evelyn froze, clutching the document tightly. "Who's there?" she demanded, voice trembling. No answer. Then, a whisper, low and dangerous, came from the darkness. "The king's cloak does not protect you here." Her heart raced. Someone else in the palace knew her secret. Someone who had waited for this moment. Before she could react, the candlelight flickered out. Darkness enveloped her. She heard the faintest shuffle of feet approaching. Not a guard, not a noble, something else. Someone who had been hiding in plain sight. Evelyn's pulse thundered. She realized, with sudden clarity, the palace was no longer merely testing her. It was hunting her. And tonight, the first move would be made. A hidden enemy finally reveals themselves. And Evelyn will have to decide. Fight, flee, or trust the king. Because the palace has begun to move, and the game has only just started. The palace never felt colder. The corridors were empty, yet every shadow seemed to whisper Evelyn's name. She moved cautiously, the red-sealed document still clutched tightly in her hand. Her breath fogged in the chill of the night, but she didn't notice. She was aware of only one thing. She was not alone. From the darkness ahead, a figure emerged. Not a guard, not a servant. Someone tall, cloaked in black, moving silently, deliberately, like a predator who had been waiting for her all along. Finally, a voice said, smooth, sharp, and dangerous. I wondered how long it would take before you found this. Evelyn's hands trembled. Who are you? The figure tilted their head, face still hidden. Someone who has been watching. Someone who knows the truth about your lineage, and about the king. Her pulse quickened. The red-sealed document in her hands felt heavier than ever. Every secret it contained could unravel her life, or save it. She took a step back. I'm not afraid of you. The figure laughed softly. You should be. Fear is not for survival. It's for those who are unprepared. And you've been prepared, but never for me. Before she could react, the figure lunged. Evelyn's instincts kicked in. She dodged, barely, and the document slipped from her grasp. It landed on the floor with a soft thud, its red seal cracking. At that moment, the Alpha King's voice echoed behind her. Enough. Cassian appeared, eyes blazing silver. The figure froze. Guards poured into the corridor, weapons ready. But the king stepped forward alone, his presence alone commanding authority. The cloaked figure raised a hand, then slowly retreated, disappearing into the shadows. Evelyn stood trembling, staring at the place where the intruder had vanished. The king's cloak was draped around her shoulders again, an unspoken shield. You're not safe here, Cassian said quietly. And yet, you have done exactly what I expected. You found the truth. And now, you will have to survive it. Her heart pounded. For the first time, Evelyn understood the true nature of the palace. It was no longer a place to train or compete. It was a battlefield. Every step, every glance, every decision carried consequences. And someone, somewhere, wanted her eliminated, or controlled. Her eyes met Cassian's. No words were exchanged, but in that silent moment, she understood. The Alpha King's protection was not unconditional. It was strategic, and it came with a price. The shadows had moved first. She had survived, but the game had only just begun.